opened the door and threw me a bent down, and they grabbed my wallet and running like bloody mad, the two of them.
It's always sad with somebody like that that's extremely vulnerable in the community being targeted by cowardly thieves like that.
Descendants of 19th century Newcastle architect Thomas Lehman were today soaking up the ambience of the street named after their great-great-grandfather. They say Mr Lehman and his tree-loving family would be appalled by the current situation.
And I'm sure that they'd be very disappointed to know that they were all cut down.
Newcastle councillors voted last night to look at physically testing the trees, a $30,000 test that some say should have been done a year ago.
This test will definitively determine whether the trees are in fact safe.
Council is believed to have already spent more than $100,000 of ratepayers' money defending its position in court, but it appears no closer to a solution.
Because it's a divided council. It was a 7-5 vote to remove them, and it was a 7-5 vote to investigate further options like the pool test and making sure they're incorporated in the civic master plan last night.
This has been going on for a year now, and it's likely to be next year before it's resolved. The feasibility study into whether to carry out the so-called pool test will take at least a month. Then there'll be a public voice meeting and then a vote to council. And as it drags into next year, you just can't help but thinking about that rock. Remember the rock? The rock fell off the cliff at Newcastle Beach, blocking a popular tourist road in 2002. It famously took the council almost 3 years to make a decision and remove it. Tree lovers at least might be happy if the council takes just as long deciding on the figs. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Jodie McKay is walking straight into a suburban furor.
I don't see why we have to be in conflict over this, which is why we're going to go back and take the community with us.
Some residents at Merriweather Heights are clearly upset. They don't want a daycare centre put here, in the grounds of the local primary school.
Totally disappointed, as there was no consultation with the residents.
They claim the streets are too narrow to cope with more cars.
And probably most importantly, it puts our children at risk.
The site was chosen by local federal MP Sharon Grierson, who secured $900,000 in funding and is refusing to budge. Now Miss McKay is entering the fray. She's called a meeting at the school tonight to set up a committee to determine if there's a better location for the centre.
I don't think it's about anyone getting it wrong. I think what we need to do is take a step back, though, and implement what is a transparent process.
So it's more than a year of hard fight by the local community to get this outcome, something we asked for right at the beginning.
But with science work is close to starting, there are concerns the proponents could pack up and walk away, a point Miss Grierson was quick to seize upon. She says with the need for childcare facilities in Newcastle so acute, any decision must happen quickly.
I would hope to see this resolved by the end of the year, so before Christmas. But if it takes a little longer, then so be it.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
It's a David and Goliath battle. Residents like Noel Cartwright against the Pasminco administrators. Ferrier Hodgson wants to change the lead abatement strategy, and Noel is one of many concerned community members objecting.
I think they're trying to dodge it, really. That's all they're trying to do.
Stan Kios is leading the charge from his Bullaroo shop. Residents have problems with the proposed changes, which include reducing the number of lead-affected properties eligible for remediation and with the way the administrator went about informing residents, a complicated letter.
Both the amendments and the way they've gone about it has been offensive to the community of Ardston and Bullaroo and Spears Point, particularly the long-term people.
Residents then wrote their own letter explaining the changes, asking people to sign and return if they object. The response speaks for itself. This is the third batch of returned letters, all in less than 2 weeks. One of the major problems with this process is the ageing population, many of whom have lived here all their lives, simply don't know what they're signing.
Well, we hope that in the future that we don't get abandoned and that we have someone here with a future fund that's going to look after the areas as we need it.
The submission period has been extended by 2 weeks and now closes on the 2nd of December. Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
It was sold out last year, and I dare say it'll be sold out this year. And I think if you can take it to a bigger stadium or something like that, it's only going to get sold out as well. So I think it's a great concept. I think, you know, some blokes I've heard say who can't play Origin, it's sort of their Origin. I think that's pretty special.
There's no doubt that he needs game time, and you know, it'll probably be 2 or 3 weeks. It's not ideal backing up so soon for him. Would have been better if we had a week in between games, but that's the way the draw is.
Newcastle was one of several clubs in the state that lost money as Racing New South Wales fought its legal battle. Now the NJC is pressing on, designing a master plan for its Broadmeadow complex. If successful in its funding push, the initial money would go towards redeveloping the inside track. It would then host meetings while the main track is re-turfed. But it doesn't stop there.
Back in the 1970s, this area was actually home to a par 3 9-hole golf course. But for the past 30 years, the inside of the Broadmeadow track has been little more than vacant land. The Newcastle Jockey Club now sees it as a vital part of its future.
Tunnels would be created to provide access, and ultimately the club is hoping to move stables from the southeast corner into the middle of the track. Nathan Tinkler has already expressed interest in shifting his operation to Broadmeadow.
We've had some discussions with Nathan, but obviously at the moment, until we have facilities and space to provide for him, we can't actually accommodate him.
The harness racing industry shared the jubilation about today's decision, and at the Newcastle Paceway there was another cause for celebration, with the announcement Blacks Are Fake will race here on Friday.
He's won 4 Inter-Dominion Grand Finals, and for people who don't follow the sport, that's like a horse winning 4 Melbourne Cups.
The horse needs another $9,100 to become the greatest harness money winner ever. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Feels great. You know, it's always nice to come back and defend. We've had a win, obviously, and a lot of good memories start, you know, coming back about the success you had in different holes and different days. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the week.
Cindy Doughty is all too familiar with Singleton's rental squeeze. She spent 2 months searching after her family was effectively priced out of its home.
When we found out from the real estate that the rent was going up $40, we were quite shocked. And then reality hit in and we thought we've got no choice but to move.
The mother of two has just found a property, but many haven't. Property manager Christine Layton says for every person who does, 10 will miss out.
We've got people at the moment that are moving in with family because there's just no accommodation available for them to move into.
The influx of mine workers moving to Singleton is seen as the likely cause. Miss Doughty is among many locals being priced out of the market.
My husband's in the retail trade, so we don't earn a mine's wage like a lot of people do in Singleton.
They are really, really struggling big time with it, and we've had a few tenants that have downsized where they're living, for that reason.
Renee Kelly finds accommodation for mine workers, and she agrees the situation is getting desperate, even for her clients.
So I think the infrastructure hasn't grown in accordance with the number of people moving here. So unfortunately, because of that, what that means is that we're losing a lot of people from the Singleton area.
Ms Layton says the town needs more housing and investors.
We've probably lost 50 properties in the last 12 months to people buying them and occupying them.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
Back in 2001, Port Stephens Council was sued by Lloyd Moffat Investments when its tourist business at Swan Bay went broke. The Moffats claimed the council didn't adequately consider the impact of jet noise from the nearby Saltash bombing range when it approved the resort. The case cost ratepayers nearly $4 million. Council's insurer, HIH, subsequently went bust, and only now has the council managed to recover the money through its insurance broker.
It's full recovery, yes, pleased to say, and that obviously makes a difference in our cash flow, which has been well documented. That's been difficult for council over the last few years.
Planners now inform all developers of the ongoing aircraft noise issues, but concede they could face future claims.
Council can't indemnify itself in those matters. The only way council has any indemnity is if we follow the Australian standards and the best information we've got at the time. That doesn't prevent some action being taken in the future, as happened in Swan Bay.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
A first for New South Wales, the 20-bed mental health care centre means non-acute patients will no longer have to be treated in a hospital ward.
We had a bit of a need and a bit of a gap for people who need to be in hospital for, let's say, 4 to 6 weeks. And I think that's the need that this unit meets very, very nicely.
The $9 million facility will provide intensive short-term rehabilitation and begin accepting patients next week.
What this will do is it will enable people to regain those skills and return back to independent living in the community.
State Health Minister Carmel Tebbit was in the region for the centre's unveiling. She also committed $9 million in funding for local hospitals.
This is as a result of the agreement that we reached with the Commonwealth Government at COAG. So this is COAG funding. It's funding new equipment, new beds.
$3.65 million is being spent establishing an emergency short stay unit at the Calvary Mater. $1.85 million will be directed towards new imaging equipment at the Royal Newcastle Centre, while the John Hunter's Emergency Department will get a $500,000 facelift. Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
2 weeks ago, they were dead last. Last night, the Jets proved it's not where they belong. Francis Jeffers again provided some spark, and his persistence almost paid off. Minutes later, he had the Raw keeper in trouble again. This time, there was a case for handball. Ben Kantarovski had never scored an A-League goal for Newcastle, but there was something in the air. After the break, his drought was over. Against the run of play, the Raw found a reply despite protests from the Jets for offside. Branko Kalina was furious, and after the game he met with officials seeking clarification on several decisions.
Certainly the feeling was that it was a very, very close call, and we just wanted to know, why we sometimes miss out on all those close calls.
Ruben Zadkovic had the chance to claim all 3 points, but his goal-scoring curse continued.
I don't know what I've got to do. I'm hitting them sweet and they're hitting the woodwork, so maybe I should start just shanking them and hope they find the corner.
Zadkovic won't get the chance against the Phoenix. He and Lubo Milicevic picked up their 5th yellows, earning a 1-game suspension. Zadkovic says his tackle wasn't worthy of a booking, and he believes he's received a raw deal.
I think they're obviously out to prove a point. I think maybe it's a bit of my reputation that's playing a part, and I don't think that's the way it should be refereed.
Meanwhile, the Jets have announced the tickets to Saturday's game are available for free on their website. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Taking time out at his home break this morning, life doesn't get much better for Craig Anderson.
The last couple of months been travelling a fair bit and just surfing every day and sitting on planes and kind of living the dream.
From Mexico to Indonesia and Hawaii, the Merriweather local travels the globe on his sponsor's dollar, riding waves for photo shoots and surfing videos. For now, it's much more appealing than competitions.
The hard surfing in front of thousands of people, and you've only got 20 minutes to impress, and I kind of struggled with that, but I don't know, maybe down the track I'll have another look at it.
In contrast, fellow Merriweather surfer Ryan Callanan is drawn to contests. He's focusing on making the leap to surfing's dream tour in the next few years.
I think you just have to love what you do and just be committed to it 100%. I think some of the guys just like it at the start and then they just get a bit burnt out.
As part of his development, the 18-year-old is on his way to Hawaii tonight to experience different breaks and watch the likes of Mick Fanning and Kelly Slater in action.
I'm just going over there just to watch the comps and just surf like every day just as much as I can and get as much footage and stuff. So I'm over there for a month, so hopefully I get some good waves.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Strike one, 250 metres to go. Bowman goes for home, but here comes Keepin' the Dream on the outside. Keepin' the Dream moves up to strike one. They were followed by Rainbow Styling, Devil's Arcade. Keepin' the Dream, 100 to go with a long sustained run. Takes the lead, and it is a boil over in the cup.
An emotional Lord Mayor fighting for his job. John Tate is standing firm despite calls from a majority of councillors for him to step aside.
But I will not be deflected, I will not wilt, I will not give in to the responsibility that I have to the ratepayers of this city.
7 councillors claim Mr Tate caused the resignation of General Manager Lindy Hyam and has an unworkable relationship with other administrators.
I think it's a crying shame, in fact a disgrace, that she's lost to this city because of the antics of a grubby sociopath.
The group is demanding Mr Tate step down, and since the Lord Mayor is popularly elected, it's considering seeking legal advice.
You have lost our confidence, and perhaps it is time to reassess your position as well. The city needs and deserves good leadership.
The outgoing General Manager won't be drawn on the nature of her working relationship with the Lord Mayor.
I'm not going to make any public comments about relationships between individuals. That's not appropriate. I've worked with the whole council. I think we've achieved a lot over the last 2 years, and I think we've got a track record we can be proud of.
And says her decision to resign is simply because she received a better offer.
This was an offer that was really quite unexpected, and so really too good to turn down.
The Lord Mayor has called an extraordinary meeting for Monday the 29th to start the process of replacing Ms Hyam. If councillors can't get along, it could spell the beginning of the end for the current council.
But if it's not functional, I will be asking the Minister to dismiss the council and put in an administrator.
Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
It's $100 million worth of real estate in the heart of Newcastle's CBD, and it's all up for grabs. Property developer GPT abandoned its plans for the city in August, citing a lack of action by the state government and its refusal to remove the rail line. Once GPT pulled out, David Jones announced it will follow when its lease expires on January 31. But the major retailer has revealed all may not be lost.
David Jones says this building is well past its use-by date and the company was always going to vacate it early next year. However, if a developer with a strong track record in retail steps in to replace GPT, DJs is keen to come back to the city.
Other shop owners remain optimistic whether David Jones stays or not.
People thought the city would fall apart with the steelworks closing, and they still think the same with David Jones leaving, but we don't. We think the city is big enough and grown up enough to survive.
With around 30 staff, Frontline Hobbies will become the largest independent retailer in the city given David Jones's departure. Owner Colin Scott says he'd prefer to see a single buyer take GPT's land holdings, but isn't banking on that outcome. His business, for one, isn't struggling. Instead, it's now expanding to Melbourne.
We thought it was the right time to do it. We feel confident about business, and Melbourne being a capital city appealed.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Just before mine workers clock on and after they clock off, these streets are choked with traffic. According to Singleton Council, it's a very visual reminder of why the state government needs to start planning a bypass.
We want to start discussions, we want to start planning, we want somebody to listen to us.
Council fears the congestion will only get worse once the Hunter Expressway opens in 2013.
Well, we believe that all the traffic from Sydney and Central Coast effectively will be landed right on our doorstep.
And that, if nothing is done, all that traffic will bottleneck at this single-lane bridge. The town's business chamber says that will spell disaster for the local economy.
If you're stuck in traffic, you just want to get to where you're getting to, and if you're finding that you're getting a bottleneck in that area, that you won't pull your car over to stop and shop or do whatever, you'll just keep going through.
Council has already written to State Roads Minister David Borger, airing its concerns. It received this response.
Indicating to us that we were not worthy of a meeting. Clearly the people of Singleton are not happy about that response.
In the meantime, the business chamber says measures such as better staggering mine shifts could help ease congestion.
That would obviously give us a better flow of traffic through the town, and also we can have a look at some additional bus services.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
These blokes are not your usual pin-ups, but they think they scrub up or scrub down pretty well. These 6 men and 6 of their fellow bowlers stripped off, well, except for their shoes and socks, to become calendar boys.
All right, Mr. December, what do you think of your photos?
Pretty good, actually. I wouldn't send them away to anybody, but as Christmas cards, but outside of that, they're not too bad.
When you started off, you was very nervous, but then you settled down, the boys got you laughing and joking and everybody was doing it.
And I haven't agreed to it yet, and I've done it 3 times.
And with snaps like these, is it any wonder the lads have some newfound popularity?
The ladies that's here, that when we go down to collect prizes on a raffle night, they all give us a cheerio and what have you.
It's terrible. All the ladies, they shy you and everything else. And I'm not a ladies' man, of course.
As you can imagine, it wasn't an easy sell to get the men to bear all.
I made out to a few of them when they'd had a few drinks the night before that they'd agreed to it, so I sort of blackmailed them into it after that, really.
Apart from all the laughs, there's a serious reason for the spread. The photos, all taken with extreme precision for obvious reasons, have been put together in a calendar to raise money to fight prostate cancer, a disease which has touched most of the men in one way or another, and to boost the profile of the good old local club, which now has some pretty famous patrons. Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
With memory still adorning Newcastle walls, it's no wonder Andrew Durante feels right at home here. A premiership winner with the Jets, he now captains Wellington and knows there'll be little room for sentiment in a match that means plenty.
We're here to get the right result, and I think it's crucial to our season for both teams that either team pick up 3 points.
Scoring goals has been the big issue for the Kiwis this season, and with Newcastle losing key defender Lubo Milicevic, Durante wants his side to make the most of that. However, he is happy to hear speculation that another former Newcastle teammate in Joel Griffiths may be at the Phoenix in the new year on a guest stint.
If the club can grab someone like Joel Griffiths, it'd be massive for Wellington. He's a fantastic player and could be the ingredient we need to, really take charge into these semis.
That won't bother the Jets just for now. It's tomorrow night's game which is the priority. Having scored his first A-League goal midweek, Ben Kantarovski would be happy to add to his account, especially against a side boasting several old teammates.
I think you try a little bit harder because you know their weaknesses and their strengths a bit more, and it's sort of a bit more personal.
Either Casey Weirman or Nikolai Topor-Stanley will assume the captaincy for what will be the club's 3rd game in 7 days.
They're a difficult side. I mean, they do like to get in your face, and they never give up over the 90 minutes. But in saying that, hopefully, because we're at home, we'll be able to get them on the back foot and hopefully get a few goals up early.
Meanwhile, the Jets' W League side plays its first home game of the season tomorrow.
Rain, hail or shine, you can find these Newcastle boys down at the beach. They've just come back from the biggest amateur bodyboarding competition in the Southern Hemisphere. It might sound like a big pressure test, but for national champion Ollie Smith, it was all about having fun.
Got a lucky wave, I guess, and just in the right spot at the right time.
The 13-year-old took out the grommets division, while best friend Rusta King finished a close second.
I kind of come in with a mindset of me trying to win and thinking I was good enough, so kind of worked out. So me and Ollie kind of bringing it back to Newcastle.
Ollie and Rusta are trying to draw attention to their sport, which they reckon is hidden in the shadows of mainstream surfing.
So, there's a real army of bodyboarders out there. I suppose they haven't really been organised as well as the surfers. It's a bit grassroots, so a little bit underground still.
As for the future then?
If you're a young guy and a young champion like Rusta and Ollie coming through now, the future's looking very bright.
A day after calling for John Tate's resignation, Aaron Buman was quick to clarify that not every councillor shares his view, but he believes his 11 colleagues have all lost faith in the Lord Mayor's leadership. He says the next step is to call for a vote of no confidence.
Perhaps that might lead to a censure, and if that's the case, then the Director-General can step in and the Director-General can suspend the Lord Mayor.
Councillor Tate is standing by his threat to call on the state government to step in and investigate the council, which could lead to its sacking and the appointment of an administrator. He's urging the group to get back to work.
I say to them, you've got the votes in council, for goodness sake get on with the job and stop the mucking around that we saw yesterday.
But the hits kept on coming.
The Lord Mayor is in fact a bully. That's number one. Number two is he's not a team player.
I've never bullied anybody, and not the senior staff or anybody.
I mean, the Lord Mayor's biggest complaint at the moment is that the General Manager worked too closely with the state member. I mean, please, Lord Mayor, you're the one who's supposed to be working hand in hand with the state member and the federal member.
Several councillors agree the Lord Mayor needs to forge a stronger relationship with the new General Manager, but they stopped short of calling him a bully and wouldn't commit to a vote of no confidence.
There's no room in local government with the amount of work that we have on our hands for internal bickering and silly nonsense.
We've really got to be listening to the community and then implementing what the community wants in this city. That's what we've got to focus on, not the bickering between councillors.
I intend to show leadership for the city and move forward and recruit a new General Manager and move on with our works program. I think that's what Newcastle needs.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
People were concerned about public open space, also the amount of activity that could be here in the future as well. It was interesting to get people's feedback in terms of their connection with the waterfront, etc., and how important the water really is.
How the Jets would love to still have these two in their ranks, but former Matildas Cheryl Salisbury and Joey Peters only watch these days, with the likes of American import Nicole Cross now headlining the home side. None of that seemed to bother Brisbane, who struck inside 2 minutes, care of Lana Harch. Tamika Butt should have added a second for the visitors. Denied by the woodwork and then Alison Logue, Butt's perseverance finally paid off, with a clever run and even better finish. 2-0 down, the Jets really did need some rescuing. However, chances were few and far between for the home side, and when they did get close, finishing was the key. Things got no better after half-time. Harch added a second to her count. When skipper Hayley Crawford took things into her own hands, it only put Lisa DeVanna on the spot, and Brisbane made it 4 in what was an all-too comfortable win.
The ball's now in District Parks Court. Pay up or effectively shut the gates.
Absolutely, yeah, we're not happy at all.
The club has been served up a $44,000 bill. Council says it wants land rates dating back 10 years.
Which we do not think that we have to pay and should not pay. It's morally wrong.
And some councillors agree.
An organisation that's been there 100 years never paid land rates. Okay, we'll charge them now, that's fine. To backdate it is immoral, and now this could cause them to go broke.
Despite its rich history, the club has seen better days. The June 2000 flood set them back, and this part of the region's premier tennis centre has never recovered. Replacing a worn court costs $30,000 a hit.
And obviously the courts we have that you can see behind me would not be able to maintain if we have another this expense.
With the club seemingly facing game, set and match, they're now considering looking to an umpire, that is, the court system, to get them out of trouble.
Obviously I can't say anything if we have a full board meeting, which our next board meeting is the 9th of December.
I'm encouraging the club to take up all legal avenues, and I'm very happy to help in this regard.
Nat Wallace, NBN News. There were few better places to be today than the beach, and the Jets had every reason to smile, all but Sean Rooney. Although scans tomorrow will ultimately decide his fate, it's feared he requires a full reconstruction.
It's got to be positive. I've been through a lot of hard stuff in this. This is just a hiccup in it, but I'll get over it.
Barely on field a few minutes, when the young striker landed awkwardly, most knew immediately it was serious.
Yeah, it was pretty sickening when I saw it.
Although unclear if the newly laid section of turf contributed to Rooney's injury, it's clear the playing surface is still far from perfect ahead of 2 more games there this week, including Saturday's match against the LA Galaxy.
Certainly it is a concern that it might have played a part. We don't know.
Marko Jesic is a man who knows all about knee injuries. He's recovered from 3 reconstructions, yet his comeback hit another high last night. It could have been even more, but it proved enough. Now come derby rivals the Mariners on Wednesday night, a match that might come too soon for a bruised Nikolai Topor-Stanley.
Obviously, I'd want to play in all games, mate, but be on the safe side. At this stage it's 50-50 whether I play on Wednesday.
If that's the case, the Jets have some fresh faces ready after serving a week's suspension.
In November 1996, 4 men drowned after they inadvertently drilled into an old flooded shaft at the Gretley Colliery in the Newcastle suburb of Wallsend. While the mechanism of that accident was different to the New Zealand event, experience was gained in the rescue attempt and subsequent recovery. 10 mining experts from the Hunter flew out to New Zealand at the weekend, and depending on how the operation proceeds, some of them could be sent underground to help.
And as the rescue effort is prolonged, it's more than likely that they will be needed to help out the New Zealand mines rescue people.
The Hunter has a reputation for its mines rescue training, using both high-tech 3D simulators and real underground experience. Mines Rescue State Manager Seamus Devlin and Hunter Valley Rescue Manager Dave Connell are leading the Australian contingent.
We also have our gas experts from Coal Mine Technical Services, plus a ventilation engineer as part of the response team. So it's a range of skills from overall incident planning, expertise in particular technical areas, plus also people have experience in mine rescue work itself.
Paul Healy believes there's still a chance the miners can be saved.
In both Chile and Beaconsfield, I think people gave up too early, and good news is always possible.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. They rallied a fortnight ago, and this week nurses will walk off the job again, calling for better staffing levels in public hospitals.
On Wednesday, the nurses of New South Wales who work in the public sector, that's nurses that work in public hospitals and also Justice Health, will be striking. The plan is that there will be a mass protest at Homebush, and the rural nurses, including some of the Hunter nurses, will have rallies in their local towns or at the local hospitals.
The Nurses Association says just 3 nurses are often forced to care for 16 patients in a ward. It argues a nurse-patient ratio of 1 to 4 would be safer. Anything less, and staff say they're risking their own safety and that of the patients.
Our registered and enrolled nurses may be called to account for their actions in situations to the Nurses Registration Board at some point in the future, and they're very concerned when they're working short-staffed. They're very concerned about patient safety.
They've vowed to defy an Industrial Commission ruling not to strike. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Blackbutt's future, I guess, involves education. Like, we get a lot of schools going to Blackbutt, and also now we've got the ability to go to school, so that's fantastic.
For the past 3 years, truck driver Jay Allen's life has been on a downward slope.
Because a mole on my body, on my ankle, it kept scabbing up and bleeding. So I just thought it was from my work boots rubbing against it. So I was pretty wrong.
Cancer. It started with a simple spot and spread into a nightmare. The 35-year-old and his family have been told there's a 65% chance it'll return.
It's changed our lives a lot.
The Allens have started an anti-sunbed campaign that has caught the attention of the New South Wales government. As it considers a ban, Jay is now looking to the next problem: sun exposure.
I don't wear sunscreen much.
Because I don't want to, I want to gain a tan.
And looking at the facts, it seems most of us do.
And when we're looking at death rates, that's 140 people every month. Every month we have 140 Australians who die from skin cancer.
The Cancer Institute says it's time to get serious. The days of cartoons are gone, replaced with the real thing. The latest ad in this series is now hitting our screens. Its target: surfers. Time will tell whether it offers a ray of hope, but for some, the damage might have already been done.
Yeah, I've changed everything about our life now, and I make sure my son's got long sleeves on, put sunblock on him all the time, and wears his hat, and just protecting my whole family.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
By rights, Marko Jesic should be basking in another good performance, but instead of celebrating his match-winning goal for all it's worth, he's been more concerned about Shaun Rooney.
Yeah, of course I was happy that we won, but I was, more devastated for him, because one of my closest mates, and, I don't like seeing people get injured, especially when it's one of my mates.
The pair actually share a flat, but that aside, if anyone knows what Rooney is going through, it must be Jesic. He endured 3 knee reconstructions, all before his 21st birthday, before making it back, and reckons Rooney will follow suit.
Very tough, he's one of those kids that where he's growing up, it's not the not the easiest neighbourhood, so no, he's a very tough kid.
Yeah, he's had 3 of them, so if he can come back from it, then I'll come back from it.
Off contract, it's hardly ideal, but for a young man who's also endured the loss of both parents to cancer, it's a challenge all believe he can overcome. His teammates host the Mariners on Wednesday night, with goalkeeper Ben Kennedy a concern with a hip injury. Several others are on light duties too, given the recent heavy workload.
I think it's a mental thing. If we stay positive and if our attitude, mental attitude is right, we'll be fine.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. Boasting a work rate the envy of most, Matt Hilda reckons the hard stuff this pre-season still lies ahead. The club's reigning Player of the Year and Players Player, Hilda plans to be in the thick of it in 2011 too, and he never takes anything for granted, accolades or not.
I don't think I've gone for a season in my career where I haven't, sort of thought to myself, you better aim up this year or you're going to be, in reserve grade, and it's the same.
It's the sort of attitude which makes him such a popular figure with teammates and his coach, who hopes to secure Hilda longer term before season kick-off.
What he brings to our team in consistency and work ethic and a terrific fella to go with it. So he's found a nice niche for himself in Newcastle, and I'd like to think he could stay there a little bit longer.
Hilda will be happy to fill the offer when it comes. Until then, he's sure to have his hands full with baby number 3 due in around as many weeks.
We've got a boy due. Well, the scan says it's a boy, so let's hope it comes out a boy.
Meanwhile, Rick Stone won't be actively replacing Andrew Johns' part-time coaching role at the club, but he believes the former great won't be entirely lost to the Knights, despite formally cutting ties late last week.
His heart and his passion and his soul is with Newcastle. I speak to him regularly on a number of players, not only ours, but opposition players, and I'm sure that relationship will continue.
This time, it's a charity who needs help. Lifeline's considering clearing out one of its busiest stores.
And if they remove all our parking as proposed in the development application, we will have to close down and we will have to relocate.
What are we going to do if it's not in Mayfield? That means we have to travel further. Not everybody has a car.
A developer has seen potential across the street. It's planning a $30 million retail precinct on a derelict block, but it needs a turning lane and therefore a section of the road.
Well, without parking, our customers won't come here. 80% of them drive and they pull up right out front, outside the shop.
And the story's the same elsewhere.
Well, loss of customers means loss of business, means have to close down, put off staff.
Business owners on Maitland Road claim to have their own solution, but feel their voices have been drowned out ahead of a decision on the development on Thursday by the Regional Planning Panel.
We need the RTA to come and talk to us, and we need the council to come and talk to us, and be serious about having the discussion.
The developer says its plans include 360 parking spaces and shoppers can simply walk across the road. But at the moment, no one seems to be buying it.
We really need to be able to park near it. It's really, especially, those of us that are disabled a little bit.
Ruining this many livelihoods cannot be a solution.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
It's been a long journey for developers.
10 years ago, we bought the Domain building when it used to be the old mill factory, and then we put Domain in there. And 4 years ago, we purchased this site.
And on Saturday week, the final block will be laid on the second stage of the centre. The 27,000 square metre project will cement Katara as one of Australia's homemaker capitals.
Together it'll be 61,000 square metres on 11 hectares with parking for 1,100 cars. So it'll be the largest homemaker centre of its type in New South Wales and the second largest in the whole of the country.
As shop owners put the finishing touches on their stores, construction crews are completing major works 18 months after they began. One piece of infrastructure ready to go is this bridge linking the two centres.
Combined between us and Westfield, we are much larger than Charlestown, and we've actually managed to employ 800 people over the last 4 years.
But as the two suburban major players battle for retail dollars, Newcastle CBD has again lost out, with several stores relocating.
Absolutely, so we've got Freedom that are just actually behind us that are going to be relocating here. Good Guys relocating from stage one to the other. Domain, which are getting a refurb.
All up, there'll be 55 retailers at the Homemaker Centre. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News. "24 medical centres worldwide took part in a study called Simplicity HTN2. The trial involved treating 106 patients suffering resistant hypertension. One of them was Jill Brock.
I had very high blood pressure that we couldn't get down with tablets.
The procedure targets nerves on either side of the kidneys using a catheter,
which is inserted into the renal arteries, and we perform a circumferential ablation using radiofrequency energy of the renal arteries on both sides.
Dr. Suku Tambar from the John Hunter Hospital says the results of the 6-month study were impressive.
It showed substantial efficacy in lowering blood pressure in this difficult group of patients.
My blood pressure's down. I used to have angina before, and that seems to have gone.
Dr. Tambar says he hopes the treatment will be rolled out further to treat more people battling high blood pressure.
There's a lot of people out there that have got high blood pressure that's unstable and they can't get it down. If they can have this trial and it works for them, it'll be great. They'll have a better life.
As a reduction of blood pressure in this difficult group of patients, there'll be less heart attacks, less strokes, and eventually less death.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
It was relatively calm and quiet in Newcastle today, but don't expect it to be the case this weekend. That's when the city will be abuzz with Beckham fever, and it's already taking hold, with almost all the accommodation booked solid.
It's certainly drawn people from all over New South Wales and also interstate into the region to see the game on Saturday night.
But just what will Bex and his teammates get up to while they're here? The options include surfing at some of Newcastle's iconic beaches, sailing on Lake Macquarie, or even cuddling koalas. Basically anything that tickles their fancy.
We're trying to get that one shot of David Beckham at Merewether Beach or holding a koala, because that's what will sell Newcastle to the world for the next, 5 years.
It's unclear just what David Beckham and his teammates will have time to do while they're here. What they do have booked in, though, is a meeting with some of their biggest or smallest fans. 640 lucky kids will get to brush shoulders with their idols at a coaching clinic on Friday, including this group from St Philip's Christian School.
We're hoping to play a minimum of 4 games, and the LA Galaxy and Jets players will hopefully be playing with us, so that would be really cool.
And some of them are far from shabby with a soccer ball. Unsurprisingly, David Beckham is the man they want to see.
Yeah, I hope to shake his hand because I've been following him for a while.
Well, I really hope to see David Beckham or Ben Kennedy, because I really like goalkeeping.
Yes, the local lads aren't being forgotten.
And who are you most looking forward to meeting?
Probably Marco Jessic, because I like him. Yeah.
One of the few Jets born and bred in the region, Jobe Wheelhouse has lived and breathed one of the A-League's fiercest rivalries and expects another explosive affair tomorrow night.
Those type of games are renowned to get a bit feisty, so I think a few of the boys in the team like that, so no, we'll be up for it definitely. And
teammates may need every bit of motivation given their recent workload. Tomorrow's game will be Newcastle's 4th in 11 days, with Wheelhouse one of the few fresh faces ready to go. Recently sidelined by injury, his return last weekend was timely to say the least, for a side now in a real run of form.
We just sort of sat down together and we sort of said that we don't want to let each other down anymore, and that's what we're doing.
Key players Lube Milicevic and Ruben Zadkovic are both back from suspension, and that'll offset the loss of Nikolai Topor-Stanley and Sean Rooney. The travelling Mariners have their own dramas, forced to back up from a disappointing loss to the Gold Coast, and their tied finish didn't go unnoticed. It's a fair bet Daniel McBreen won't be flat. The Newcastle-bred striker calls the coast home these days, but hopes to have some support on his return.
When I got signed here for the first time, I got stick from a few of my mates, but that's just normal from my mates. But my family are all Mariners supporters now. They've all jumped ship.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. At just 16, Matt Banting doesn't just know how to surf, he knows how to win. Until recently, the Port Macquarie teenager reached finals in 45 consecutive events, winning 32 of them, including last year's Australian and world titles. And with that sort of record, everyone expects him to perform at the National Championship at Phillip Island starting Saturday.
So everybody thinks, if you can win the Worlds, you can win this easily, but it's not like that. It's very strong in Australia. I think we've got the strongest country, and it'll be very hard down there, I reckon.
The ride south will be pretty sweet too. Matt and his dad Lenny are on their way in a modified minibus that's part transport, part accommodation. It certainly puts a new slant on the surfing road trip, and it has its own soundtrack.
Yeah, I'm used to it. I don't mind gangster rap now, after listening to it for about 5 or 6 years.
It's watching his son perform like this that Lenny really prefers. And if Matt lives up to reputation, they'll be driving home with another Australian title. However, Newcastle's Jake Sylvester will have a lot to say about that.
He won the New South Wales state titles, he ripped there, so he'll be on form at Phillip Island. I'll be watching out for him.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.